Good evening and welcome to the 4th Annual Geekcentric Academy Awards Preview Show, emanating live from Geekcentric Studios across Canada. Tonight, we'll be examining some of the biggest and most prestigious categories from the 95th Academy Awards, giving our thoughts and predictions regarding some of our favorite nominees. And now, on with the show. What's up, geeks? My name is Kev. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast celebrating the world of movies, television, gaming, toys and collectibles, and all things geekcentric. And that's right, it's already that time of the year again where we take a look at all things Oscar-centric, like only Geekcentric can. As is always the case, I can't host this thing alone, so I think it's time to welcome my handsome and charming co-hosts for the program. It looks like their limo's arriving, so let's welcome them down the red carpet. First, you know he won't be all quiet on any front. In fact, he'll be like a banshee of Inisherin when it comes to discussing the way of water. This Top Gun is a triangle of happiness. It's Nate.
Keep my donkey's name out your feckin' mouth.
All right, I had a timer to see how long it would take us to reference Will Smith, and it did not take long.
Not at all.
Not disappointing.
Of course.
And next, when this man is talking, he won't be telling you fables, man. You'll think this king of podcast very much for the way he conducts himself on Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's Justin.
Hey, I have no witty comments about the slap.
Hey, don't the kids say that this show is going to slap? I think that's for sure. This episode today is going to slap really hard. It's so great to be back. I look forward to this every year. Hell, I look forward to trying to introduce you guys using just the Best Picture noms every year. And so all of this is obviously a lot of fun. Before the big show kicks off, here's a quick reminder of what we do on the Geekcentric Oscar Preview Show. We'll be taking a look at the 13 categories we find the most interesting. We'll predict who wins for each and see who can get the most right when we recap the show next week. Of course, it's a friendly competition, but one that comes with some serious bragging rights for the rest of the year. Nate and I tied for the win last year, and we haven't stopped bugging Justin about it since. We're also going to give our thoughts on each of the 10 Best Picture noms as we try to guess who wins the most illustrious award in cinema in what is an exceptionally tough year to pick a winner. Or is it?
Just before we hand out the gold, I've got another prediction really quick just before we get into things. I think that there are going to be at least 5 severed fingers thrown at Jimmy Kimmel over the course of the evening. That's my prediction. Of course, there's going to be a Will Smith slap joke at some point. It's probably not going to be very good, but please, if by all that is holy, have a good joke in there. Get Brendan Gleeson involved. I think it would be really, really fun. But
that's brilliant. No, I have to stop you for a sec. That is brilliant. That would be a fun gag. That would really work. It would be the perfect sort of spin on, the whole slap incident, but also, a fun way to pay tribute to the movie. That's brilliant. I hope they're listening so they can steal that idea.
I know. I also think that we'll probably see the donkey show up on stage. No.
Oh, it's going to be that kind of show. Oh, boy.
And I bet you he's the one that's going to have a slap joke attached to it. The donkey.
I don't know. Don't slap a donkey.
I think the donkey's going to slap someone.
Now, as we get started, I always like to do a little bit of Oscars by the numbers. Everything Everywhere All at Once leads the pack with 11 nominations. The film is followed closely by The Banshees of Inisherin and All Quiet on the Western Front, both with 9. This is also the most calendar-diverse year since 2009, I should say, when it comes to Best Picture nominations, as the 10 best picks were spread out over 6 different months, and their releases ranged from March to December. Last year, as is often the case, 8 of the 10 nominees opened in just the last 2 months of the years. Steven Spielberg has now tied William Wyler for directing the most Best Picture nominees at 13. This is the first time in 86 years that 16 different performers were nominated for their first acting Oscars. In fact, all 5 Best Actor nominees are first-timers, whereas last year, 0 were first-timers in the same category. Mandy Walker's just the 3rd female nominated for cinematography with her nod for Elvis. Will she be the first ever female winner? And finally, John Williams receives his 53rd nomination, putting him just 6 behind the record of 59 set by Walt Disney. Will John Williams actually retire, as he's alluded to, or will he keep himself in the game just to challenge Walt for the distinction of most nominations ever? Only time will tell. It's now time to hand out our first Shiny Gold statuette. For actress in a supporting role, the nominees are Angela Bassett, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever; Hong Chau, The Whale; Carrie Condon, The Banshees of Inisherin; Jamie Lee Curtis, Everything Everywhere All at Once; Stephanie Hsu, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Gentlemen, what do we think of the category? Who do we think is taking it home?
I'm going to go just out right away and just Angela Bassett. I mean, we said this since the moment we did our spoiler-free review. We did a spoiler-filled where we said it again. And I'm saying it again here. Angela Bassett, for her performance in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, was incredible. I do want to say Hong Chau in The Whale was also incredibly riveting in the way that she was able to portray her character of Liz. But no, I think I'm absolutely going to lock it in with Angela Bassett on my side.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Angela Bassett is going to win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. She gave a career performance as Queen Ramonda in Wakanda Forever. And you're absolutely right, Nate. When we were talking about this in our spoiler-free review, we were saying she's going to get nominated. So I'm so happy to see her on this list. She deserves to be here. She gave such a real, authentic performance that was rooted in grief, and as she mourned for her friend and on-screen son Chadwick Boseman, and that I think that elevated her performance because it came from a real place in her heart. I think the only person that can challenge her is probably Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once, as she recently won the SAG Award. But yeah, Stephanie Hsu should be here. Hong Chau should be here. This category is stacked, but my money's on Angela Bassett for Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, this one's such a toss-up, and like you guys said, Angela Bassett is so deserving, not just of the nomination, but of the win itself. Her performance was the powerhouse performance in this category, amongst some really terrific performances. But I like to play the game. I like to dive deep, and I do think that the current trend in the awards, with Jamie Lee Curtis winning several, most recently, I'm giving the edge to her. But I think this could be my first misstep of many as we go through some of these categories. So I like the start we're off to. It's now time to move into our first look at a Best Picture nomination. I would just like to say, folks, get ready for some name mispronunciations, especially in the producer roles here. From producers Malt Grunner, Daniel Dreyfus, and Edward Berger, All Quiet on the Western Front is a psychological anti-war film that tells the tale of idealistic young German soldier Paul Baumer during World War I, who's quickly exposed to the horrific realities of war, shattering his early hopes of becoming a hero as he does his best to survive. We had a pretty big war film just a few years ago in 1917, and this resonated much like that film did with me in its anti-war sentiment and its just amazing portrayal of the horrors of war. I almost felt this one more in some ways. Maybe it was the gritty gore and violence, but this had me just on the edge of my seat in horror watching what these young men went through.
Yeah, it's kind of in a very dark way, but in a sad way. It almost feels like a call and response between these two movies of 1917 and then this remake that we've gotten. I think it's a fantastically shot film. I was really it's really captivating, like the way that we see these kids and just how excited they are to go off to war, as if they've won the lottery for some reason, and just all the things that are instilled in their heads, and to sort of see Paul and his journey throughout, and the people that he interacts with, and the relationships that he makes and loses. And there's one scene that I really want to quickly call out that I just thought was really, really impactful, and it's the way that they shoot this moment where they're collecting clothes and boots and things off of all the dead soldiers, and then throwing them into these bags into the back of a truck. And to me, I was just like, that's exactly what they're doing with these kids. And it just shows the endless cycle of violence and war. And absolutely, it was a movie that again, I argued to Justin off air about, I'm like, why the frick do all these movies have to be so damn long with all these Best Pictures? But this was one where I actually didn't really feel the length. I was captivated the entire way through.
Yeah, I feel like this is, this was a good movie for sure. It's an epic war movie that is an exploration into the sort of emotional, psychological, and physical tolls that war can have on soldiers. And I think the most important thing to remember about it, and it's a great call out to say that 1917 very much did this already, and it feels very similar. But the main difference here is that 1917 is a Hollywood movie. It's produced by the Hollywood studios. All Quiet on the Western Front, this is a European movie that is being recognized and acknowledged as Best Picture. So it's an international film, and I think that perspective alone allows them to lean in more to the true horrors of war, because it has affected Europe on multiple levels. I think that's safe to say that there's generational families that grew up in war in Europe, and stories have been passed on and stuff, and it's a different perspective than some Hollywood movies tend to deliver. But this is an epic war movie that really does dive into the psychological, emotional, and physical effects that the war has on its soldiers. That's captured in sound and visuals, and again, like you were mentioning, the horror and the gore that is captured in this movie it's intense.
Well, and I think even just comparing it to 1917 again, we're seeing those movies from each different perspective here, the good guys and, in this case, the bad guys. And you realize that while these men were off doing what they thought was right and fighting for truly awful people for truly awful reasons, they're the victims themselves, and they were on both sides of the battlefield. And it's just, anytime you get hit with the numbers that you get hit with at the end about the number of lives lost and the number of soldiers and everything, it's just so tragic and amazing to think how lucky we are to have been born when we were, to not have been drafted into a situation like that or to have to face anything like that in our lives.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think the majority of the awful people were the people that never once set foot on the battlefield, right? Those were the majority of the evil on both sides that create that war. I did want to shout out Daniel Bruhl as well. Baron Zemo is in the movie, and I really enjoyed his character as well, and kind of what he was pushing for throughout the film. So yeah, really good stuff.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's move right into our next category. This is for actor in a supporting role. For The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Gleeson. Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway. Judd Hirsch for The Fabelmans. Barry Keoghan for The Banshees of Inisherin. And Ke Huy Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, I think no doubt for this one, Ke has got it in the bag. He has been on
the
an
fanny
award
pack
tour.
He's got it in the fanny pack.
There you go. There you go. I missed the joke. Thank you. Yeah, I think he's had an award tour where he's just been cleaning up. Each speech that he gives is more emotional, so I look forward to seeing him on stage. But much like Angela Bassett in Wakanda Forever, Ke stands out as one of the memorable parts of this movie for his portrayal of as a father, a husband, an action hero, even just a mystery man, and playing variations across a multiversal story. He does it so well to make each of them feel so different. And this is his comeback story. Like, this is his whole comeback, and I would love to see it. So I might be going with my heart, but Ke Huy Quan is going to win the Oscar for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Everything Everywhere All at Once, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Short Round or Data from the Goonies put some chapstick on and became this incredible actor, and rightfully so is getting nominated here. I do think, I think Brendan Gleeson was the best part of Banshees of Inisherin. Barry Keoghan is gives a very intriguing performance in that movie as well. But I will say Ke Huy Quan is going to win for Everything Everywhere All at Once, not only because I want him to, but just it has to happen.
He deserves it.
He deserves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is probably the nicest story going into the entire awards show. And I mean, you mentioned the two gentlemen from Banshees, who I thought both had great performances in different regards. Even Judd Hirsch makes the absolute most of his incredibly limited screen time. I mean, anytime you can get nominated for being in something for like 5 minutes, it's just a testament to how captivating you are on screen. But no, I think if Jamie Lee Curtis didn't already signal a trend tonight, I think Ke Kwan winning is just getting the EEAAO train a rolling here. I think that's a around the board for Mr. Kwan here, and we wish him the best of luck on Sunday. All right, let's move into our next nominee for Best Picture. From producers James Cameron and John Landau, Avatar: The Way of Water returns us to Pandora 15 years later to continue the story of Jake Sully, who, with his family, must retreat from a familiar threat while forming bonds with a new group of Na'vi warriors. And I'll just lead off here. I was a little late to the Avatar party. I didn't see this one for a couple weeks. What made that nice was that I was able to find an IMAX theater with almost nobody in it, so I got the room in a theater that I always enjoy. But what else? I'm not sure. It felt like a lot of the same here, but there was enough different. Specifically, the performance of Sigourney Weaver, who I really found captivating, and I found her character just really, really engaging throughout. It gives me hope that there might be a point to Cameron continuing on with these movies if he can just tell us a different story next time. That's what really held this one back for me. Obviously, I'm sure the visuals will get talked about a lot throughout the show and rewarded as such. But it served a purpose. But I'm not sure it quite. It was a tough bar to reach the original, and I'm not quite sure they did it here.
Kevin, I'm going to forgive you for being Avatar-y to the Avatar party, but I
can't believe I missed that.
I will say, I definitely agree with you. I think the biggest thing with this movie is where the story sort of falters. It's definitely better than Avatar 1. I don't know if that is saying a lot. It's in my opinion, it really had a rough go with kind of a villain problem and really giving and establishing motivations for its villain beyond just revenge. I think they had such a good opportunity to give us a little bit more, in the sense of bringing back that character. But I don't know. It fell short for me. And I love Stephen Lang. We got to interview him. He's fantastic, but I think they could have done a little bit more there. And I think it feels very much like a setup movie. Like the whole movie is just a bunch of setups with not any resolve for a character and no real character arc within the movie. So the entire time I'm just sort of like, wow, this is beautiful. But I don't know if I really feel as though any of these characters actually went through a full journey, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel like its own movie. It feels like I'm like in the middle of two other movies. And I really wish that it did a better job as a sequel.
Let's be real here. This movie is clearly in this category for its achievements in the visual effects. It is to be celebrated. It drew audiences into the theaters to experience it. So it is here for that reason. But I totally agree with you. I think that this movie, in comparison to the other movies in Best Picture, its story lacks the most because there is no story. This movie is built off of the fact of visual effects, and I'm going to say it, spectacle of what it is to be in the theaters. Yeah. And that idea of what the theater going experience is, the escapism, the visually immersive images that just are an experience of their own, the next level technology and that sort of stuff. And that's great. You've effectively created new technology. You're innovating the filmmaking process. It's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, this movie seriously lacked in its narrative composition. Great performances from some of the cast, but that's given what they were working with in terms of a writing perspective. I think Sigourney Weaver's character is by far the most interesting. And I do agree with you, Nate. I think the motives of the villain are a little muddled, but I got to say, Stephen Lang was fantastic. And everyone else just felt, like they really had to act through that performance capture, which translated in a lot of instances. But their characters themselves, the way those characters were written, were so hollow. They're just, like you said, like they're just pieces on a board. That's essentially it. Do you know what I mean? To whatever this overly large story is about. And while I understand why it is in the category of Best Picture, I don't know if it necessarily deserves to be here, because there are other films that had a better balance of visual effects with story that did it better this year and probably deserve to be on this Best Picture list more than Avatar. That said, if this movie is going to get recognition, it's in the visual effects.
Well, it's interesting you speak of visual effects because that's our next category. The nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and Top Gun: Maverick. And I think are we all in agreement here?
Yeah, well, you know I am.
I'm going to go with All Quiet on the West. No, I think Avatar, The Way of Water, is absolutely going to take it. And I think, again, from a standpoint of its achievement, I definitely think, especially out of the movies that they have selected here, I definitely think it deserves to win.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Avatar wins or I'll eat my laptop. And I am glad to see that unlike, the first time James Cameron made this movie 15 years ago, it didn't just sort of sweep all of the categories and sweep all of the awards. It other than being recognized as Best Picture, it was recognized where it should be, and might pick up a few pieces of hardware along the way there. But no, I think this is the safest bet.
For sure. And I think that, much like the first time this movie was nominated, no one knew that there was more stories to be told. And, he was nominated for director, but he wasn't nominated this year. And it's like, well, chill. He's got more stories to tell.
He'll have his chance.
Exactly. So it's, it'll happen again for it. But right now, visual effects is where this movie is going to win.
Well, Kevin, listen, if Avatar: The Way of Water doesn't win for Best Visual Effects, I'll eat your fingers, okay? I'll eat all 5 of your fingers.
Oh, you mean like a certain donkey?
Like a certain donkey.
Well, yeah, that's interesting because that actually sounds like our next nominee for Best Picture. From producers Graham Broadbent, Pete Zernin, and Martin McDonough, The Banshees of Inisherin is the story of two lifelong friends who find themselves at an impasse when one abruptly ends their relationship with alarming consequences for both of them.
This movie was...
It was good.
Yeah, I like the accents. I think the performances were great. I think, as I mentioned already, Brendan Gleeson I thought was fantastic. I thought Colin Farrell was fantastic. I think Kerry Condon was fantastic. I couldn't help but feel like the movie kept poking at themes and ideas, but never fully diving into them. And especially for the runtime that it had, it had the opportunity to dive further into body horror, even though it is pretty gross what happens. I think it had the opportunity to dive further into the horror genre with the aspect of the Banshees of Inisherin. I just found that it unfortunately for me, I wasn't captivated the entire time. It was just two blokes fighting, and I couldn't quite understand a lot of the motivations, for Com Sonilari, as they would call him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Nate. Like I don't think it really commits to anything, and I think that's its weakness. But it is its strength is its performances, which is why it's interesting that this movie is in the Best Pictures category, because it is one that should really be celebrated for its performances, much like Whale. Like Whale is being celebrated for its achievements in the performance section. It's not being recognized as Best Picture or even Best Writing for that matter. So yeah, while not a really great story, and I don't know if it really needs to be in Best Picture, the performances in this movie are fantastic and rightfully recognized.
Well, I mean, now that we've started getting more and more into Twitter. And in the past couple of years, I've read a lot of terrible tweets. One terrible tweet that I read was in response to shout out to the Untitled Movie Podcast, Matt and Eric, where they ended up. I think they did a review for The Whale, and I read a response of someone saying like their whole thing was, hey, it was a phenomenal performance. But if you take the performance out of it, they're not sure that the movie would necessarily stick with you. And somebody was like, performances are the movie. And I'm just like, no, that's one aspect. You have to have a wonderful narrative. And that's exactly kind of how I felt watching this movie the entire time, was that I was just like, okay, I get what they're trying to go for, but I'm also bored. and I just wish the movie would keep up a better pace. I was ready to go out with Jenny, I'll be honest with you.
Oh, jeez. And I mean, for myself personally, when I saw that Martin McDonagh, Colin Farrell, and Brendan Gleeson were teaming up again, I was through the roof excited. I love In Bruges. Watched that movie several times. This movie, however, I probably wouldn't choose to put on again. I actually found myself quite surprised at how depressed I was by the end of it. I did not expect it to sort of go down the winding road of despair that it does, and I just think the movie does suffer a little bit of not capitalizing on the charm that its performers have and can bring, and actually did bring even through the first half of the movie. I question some of the decisions that were made in the storytelling aspects. The movie itself is pleasant to look at. At times, it's filmed very interestingly, but it never really, like you guys said, hits any peaks in terms of anything outside of the performances. And I'm just surprised that I thought, okay, well, this is the most depressing of the 10 best picture noms I'll watch. And I don't think it was, but we will discuss those later as we go on through the show. Let's move into our next category. This is for cinematography. For All Quiet on the Western Front, James Friend. For Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Darius Knoji. For Elvis, Mandy Walker. For Empire of Light, Roger Deakins. And for Tar, Florian Hoffmeister.
Well, I gotta say, while I haven't seen everything in this category, I am surprised that we have some films missing specifically for its cinematography. Like the work of Hoyt van Hoytman's Nope. With the way his shots immersed you in this landscape, especially in that IMAX format. Or someone like Greg Fraser for The Batman, using digital cameras with old manual lenses to give the movie a grungy, dirty look. Or Top Gun, even, from Claudia Miranda. We had some outstanding films this year with great cinematography that feel left out of this category. But I won't get into a huge tangent about this because there's more on the list, in my opinion. But yeah, for this category, you know what, guys? I'm going to go with a very unlikely choice. I'm going to go with Tar, shot by Florian Hoffmeister. Wow. I got to say, I think the cinematography worked to enhance the overall story experience from a psychological perspective. I think the use of camera movement and knowing when to move the camera and when not to move the camera is really well thought out. There's the use of locked off tripod shots where, there's not much movement in the camera, but the scene is unfolding in front of the camera. It's about where things are in focus and where things are out of focus and where people are placed in the background and in the foreground. So there was just a really, really clever use of that, while also incorporating some one-take camera work. The level of synchronization and choreography that goes into the movement of the camera and the way things, again, are in focus and not in focus, it's really well done. I really do think that this movie, really understands how to use the cinematography to enhance the overall narrative experience. It was both beautiful and haunting and often, in some cases, a little surreal. So there was a little bit of everything there. But yeah, I haven't seen everything in this category, as I was mentioning. I think, seeing Mandy Walker nominated for this is great. I've seen the work of Roger Deakins. I don't know if he's going to win for this one. All Quiet on the Western Front was fantastic as well, and I think that it could be the front runner. But hey, we've already seen War Pictures win in this category, so I'm putting my money on Florian Hoffmeister for Tar for Best Cinematography.
Interesting. I'm actually going to go with All Quiet on the Western Front, which is interesting too with Deakins on the list. And again, we've already mentioned 1917 and the phenomenal way that movie was captured and shot. But there are moments in All Quiet that, again, they find a way to, anytime through cinematography you can find a way to tell the story. That's where I'm like, yeah, you got me in. And there are so many quiet sequences with no dialogue, or sometimes not even a character on the screen, that work to just completely fill in that void and add so much to it. And I think it was really well shot. I think it was really well lit. And again, while I don't think anything on this list will sort of reach the peaks of cinematography from past years. I do think that All Quiet on the Western Front was my pick, and I hope it wins.
You're so right about some of the shots, Nate, and even just how, the movie opens with the mountain in the background and you see an explosion go off behind it and then bookends itself and it is just all quiet now. Just beautiful decisions like that. And to make such horrific visuals be so stunningly beautiful at the same time is certainly a skill. This is the movie I would pick if I were giving out the award. However, I think we're going to get our first real series of gripes from viewers with the winner of this, as it's going to be Mandy Walker for Elvis.
Oh, wow.
I just think the glitz and glam that she's able to capture in an otherwise bloated film with some very questionable acting. The fact that she could make any of it look good, I think, is a testament to her skill, and I think it's going to get rewarded. I'm not saying I want it. I'm just picking it for the points.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I don't disagree with that, and I'm happy that Mandy Walker is nominated. To have a female in this category, I think is absolutely fantastic. It's just that movie felt more driven by its CGI visual effects than it did its cinematography.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the personality of the movie is more Baz Luhrmann than it is Mandy Walker, right? Whereas I think in many of the other cases for the cinematography, when you watch a Roger Deakins movie, you get Roger Deakins vibes from it. You get Hoyt von Hoytman when you watch one of his films. Even Craig Fraser. These are cinematographers that have a style that works with filmmakers. I just feel like the visual style of Baz takes away from Mandy Walker's cinematography overall.
I would agree with that. I do think that was an issue that we'll see if the Academy recognizes that. But I am excited that we finally had our first category where we each had different decisions. It does make the total at the end of the competition that much more interesting. But let's move right into our next technical category, which is for film editing. For the Banshees of Inisherin, Michael E.G. Nielsen. For Elvis, Matt Villa and Jonathan Redmond. For Everything Everywhere All at Once, Paul Rogers. For Tar, Monica Willi. And for Top Gun, Maverick, Eddie Hamilton.
I want to just start off with just mentioning Luc Montpellier for Women Talking. I think that movie was actually edited fantastically. I think it got snubbed here, unfortunately, and I think it deserves to be on the list over some of these other movies. But for editing, the amount of awards that this movie is going to take on Sunday night, I actually can't count on my hot dog fingered hands. I think it's going to be Everything Everywhere all at once for editing. There are moments in that movie in the way that it's cut specifically that just stick with you. Some of the decisions made, the decision to sort of cut to a completely, silent scene, or even just the way that they were able to move so fluidly from moment to moment in that movie, really does speak to obviously the directing and some of the writing choices, but absolutely the editing as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to win Best Film Editing because of the way it told a multiversal story through editing. It told a story about one person at different points in their life, at different universes, and interwove those moments in the climactic to show how they're all connected. I think it's masterfully done as a means of telling such a large story with such a focused theme on love. And family, really, at the end of the day. And you said it best, Nate. A lot of this could be attributed to the writing, which I think is very integral. But when it comes to the overall editing process, the story really does get written in the edit and really comes together and things move around. And there's a lot of movies in this category that feature some outstanding editing. I was talking about Tar earlier in the cinematography, and I think here in editing, it does make sense. We can talk about it more when we talk about the pacing of the movie, but overall, I think a lot of the psychological undertones really do reveal themselves in the edit. It comes to life in the edit. And Top Gun absolutely deserves to be on this list because of the way it weaved together the shots of the jet in the cockpit, the tension, It had me gripping my seat, and it had fist bumping moments, just the way things were cut together. But I guess it could go to either of those. But no, I got to go with Paul Rogers. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. He did such an amazing job with this movie. Yeah,
100%. I think it took the most difficult story to sort of make sense of and kept it grounded, kept it something that almost felt familiar while being so different. I think it took a lot of skill and finesse to work the crazy ideas that we see in that movie, to have them come together and to still resonate the major themes that the story was trying to tell. I think it was an incredible piece of editing. It's probably the award I think it most deserves out of the many, many, many that it's going to take home on Sunday night. So another consensus vote for us there. Why don't we move right into our next nominee for Best Picture? From producers Baz Luhrmann, Catherine Martin, Gail Berman, Patrick McCormick, and Schuyler Weiss, Elvis chronicles the life of the American rock and roll singer and actor Elvis Presley under the manipulative management of Colonel Tom Parker. And gents, why aren't we talking about the greatest robbery of this entire award show, which is clearly Tom Hanks not getting the Best Supporting Actor nom for his incredible portrayal here? Okay.
Was that serious? Is that sarcasm? Okay,
Yes.
that was sarcasm. I was going to say, Kevin, like, he feels like a supervillain. Like, he's a supervillain in that movie, like a comical supervillain. It's really unfortunate. I didn't mind Elvis. I don't know if I'd want to spend another 2 hours and 40 minutes watching that movie again. But it had its quirky charms at times. I think it at times it felt like an early 2000s superhero movie. Especially with the score behind it. I think there were some interesting mashups with modern music and Elvis music at the time. But I will say, I think my favorite moments in that movie had to do with some of the visual effects that were done in the movie. And while I don't think it should win that category up against Avatar, I will say the moment seeing the where they show the legacy footage of some of the movies and clips of Elvis. And it's one of those things where I'm like, is that Austin? Is that Elvis? That was captivating to me. And they threw in enough of those throughout the runtime of the movie that I was like, okay, I'll stick around. I'll keep watching it. But I don't really think this... I don't think this deserves to be on the Best Pictures list, even though I did enjoy it. I also don't think it's the worst thing on the Best Pictures list, but we'll get to that.
Ooh, fascinating. Just what were your thoughts on Elvis?
Well, I wasn't a fan of it either. I actually think that this is my least favorite movie on this whole list. It's not great. I think it's bloated. It's way too long, and you described it, Nate, as 2000 superhero vibe. That's just Boz, man. That has been Boz Luhrmann since like fucking Moulin Rouge, man. And it's just been his thing that he's done for the last several movies. Even the way he did Great Gatsby was very similar to how he did Elvis. Super flashy, very over the top. It was more about the glitz and the glam than it was about anything story driven. It was visual. It's essentially like Avatar: The Way of Water. It was a visual feast for your eyes. And I think that Elvis is very much the same. It's very heavy on the visuals, very light on the story. And there are, some questionable performances. Tom Hanks I just don't even understand how and why he decided to do that role. I'm shocked. I was shocked. I wasn't a fan of this movie.
How one of the great actors of all time could make the decisions you've got me thinking about this supervillain thing, and I'm almost thinking like Sam Jackson in Unbreakable now, but that worked for that movie,
right.
Whereas this did not work here. Instead of telling the story of Elvis, which, one of the all-time most iconic performers of all time, one of the most famous people that has ever lived, when you look at his peak of popularity around the world, he was seen by more people than the biggest celebrities of today are, just because of his legacy and his impact and the way they changed broadcasting things around the world because of him. And instead of telling that story, it did very much feel like it was like Baz Luhrmann telling that story, and it's like, look at how I would tell this story, rather than toning it down
Then
a
telling
little
the story.
and focusing on the character that we wanted to see told here.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
Why don't we move into our next category? I think this is one of Nate's favorite of the evening. This is the award for original score. For All Quiet on the Western Front, Volker Bertelmann. For Babylon, Justin Jurwitz. For the Banshees of Inisherin, Carter Burwell. For Everything Everywhere All at Once, Sun Lux. And for The Fabelmans, John Williams. I'll start this one off here by saying I love John Williams more than any composer. He's probably my all-time favorite just because of the iconic themes and songs. They make up my cinematic life. This was not his finest work. I honestly didn't even notice there was a score to this movie as I was watching it. It was very, very generic. I think while I couldn't name somebody more deserving to go on the list, I think this was very much a legacy nomination. And that when somebody's already got 20-something awards and 50-something nominations, let somebody new even just get recognized, because a nomination can mean so much to people to just, maybe I will watch that movie if it's getting all this recognition, or if it was nominated, and I just think it's a bit of a wasted opportunity here. That said, a soundtrack that absolutely rocked me, or a score I should say, was All Quiet on the Western Front. What Bertelmann does here, with just sounds at times, with the instruments are making sounds, not music, and it's so powerful. There's a scene where tanks are rolling in on our main characters, and the just but it was terrifying. I thought it was amazing. It was my favorite score from the best pictures that we watched, absolutely, and I'm going for it for the win as well.
Yeah, Volker Bertelmann, nailed it. The idea of using the instrumentation to incite fear in the viewer was incredible. And yeah, dude, that noise in particular, and it's not like it's just Inception again. It's like it's a noise that is going to resonate and stick with
But it is Inception
no,
again.
it's not, dude. No way.
It's different enough.
It's
in my
harsher.
opinion. It's the same idea, but it is. It was the first thing that Sarah and I talked about after watching the movie was that sound. Oh,
I will also just say I think the piano work that John Williams puts in The Fabelmans, I liked it. I think it was different enough. There's obviously a lot of strings in that movie as well, but I think some of the tunes that he plays really help to emphasize some of the warmer moments and also some of the colder moments in that movie. But I think Son Lux, for me, is where I'm going to put my vote, with Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's such a different soundtrack. It really, when we're talking about music to enhance the narrative and the story, and we're talking about a multiversal score, that's exactly what we get from Son Lux, and it is pretty riveting. Now, I've heard strategically that it might be the best choice to choose Babylon, as the music apparently is pretty rocking in that, but I wasn't going to sit through 3 hours and 40 minutes of a movie to figure that out. So I listened to a little bit, and yeah, absolutely. The jazz sounds and the sort of the instrumentation in that soundtrack sound intriguing, but I'm not gonna go with it just because I haven't seen it. I'm going with Everything Everywhere All at Once from Son Lux.
Yeah, I'm going with Everything Everywhere All at Once from Son Lux as well. I think that, as you said, Nate, it is by far the most unique score on this list. It had to move quickly and move people through different emotions and moods, just like the narrative does from a film editing standpoint. So I think it's done so well as a musical score to be both of itself while also reminiscent of a cinematic score. It has the best of both. And you mentioned one person that should be on this list. I think Michael Giacchino should be on this list for The Batman. It's unfortunate that he wasn't actually on this list. I was surprised because that score, that got a lot of recognition.
I mean, but wasn't it just one theme repeated for 2.5 hours? That would be my only issue with it. It was incredible. It's it should be the next iconic Batman music that you think of.
But Kevin, you remembered it. You didn't remember the Fabelmans,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that's
right. Like you, yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I'm fine with him going on there over John Williams. Absolutely, it was probably better than that. Nate, you did bring up some interesting points about the Fabelmans with the piano and the whole aspect of Spielberg's mom and everything. It's you didn't change my mind, but you made some compelling arguments.
Well, I totally agree with you, Kevin. I think this movie wastes the talents of John Williams. You know, the Fabelmans is missing that signature theming or score, that signature theming that is inherently what John Williams brings to every movie. Like if you think of the work that he did for Catch Me If You Can, like you remember Leonardo DiCaprio, you remember Tom Hanks, you remember this really fun heist adventure con man story, but you also remember John Williams' music. It is signature to that movie. So, you know, I don't think you're wrong to say that this was a little subdued and it was very background music, which just doesn't feel inherently what John Williams would usually bring to a project. So I feel like he was kind of wasted and his talents didn't really get used. And I don't know, it just came off overly generic and not really important overall.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting point. But I will say, as we're about halfway through here, gentlemen, it's clear. Did you guys have a favorite movie, perhaps, that was nominated a whole bunch here? Going a lot with the Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I don't think that is a bad strategy or opinion to have at all. In fact, speaking of, why don't we move into our next nominee for Best Picture? From producers Anthony Russo, Joe Russo, Mike LaRocca, Daniel Kwan, Daniel Scheinert, Jonathan Wang, and Peter Tam Lee, Everything Everywhere All at Once explores the adventures of Evelyn Wang, who, while being audited by the IRS, discovers that she must connect with parallel universe versions of herself to prevent a powerful being from destroying the multiverse. This sounds like a Marvel movie that we saw that wasn't very good. Fortunately, we got two multiversal movies in the year, and one was exceptionally better than the other.
And we spoke to the directors of both of those movies in previous podcast episodes. This movie, I haven't stopped thinking about Everything Everywhere All at Once. It truly is Everything Everywhere All at Once, as I think as a quote from Justin on your review that you guys did. It honestly, the Daniels nailed it, and incredible performances from the entire cast: Michelle Yeoh, Stephanie Hsu, Ke Huy Quan, James Hong, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jenny Slate. Just some really, really fantastic moments that are kind of forever ingrained in my brain. And it's one of those movies that I rewatched, and I was so happy to do so. And again, when you've got like a super long runtime, like all of these movies do, for you to be sort of excited to invest that much of your day into a story, I think it speaks a lot with how much phenomenal content we have available to us these days, that you would spend so much time rewatching this movie. But yeah, dude, it's fantastic. It's incredible. It's everything.
Yeah, it is literally Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I'm going to connect it back to the fact that this movie has everything from all the other movies in its category for Best Picture. It has the visual effects. It has the adventure.
It's got Elvis.
Heartfelt. It doesn't got Elvis, thankfully, but it's got...
You've got... At one point, you do have somebody wearing an Elvis outfit.
Actually, yeah, you're right, actually.
Yep.
You're right. You're absolutely right. It's Stephanie Hsu's character that wears the Elvis outfit. Okay, Elvis is there, too. That is great. Basically, getting to the point that this movie has everything from all those other movies, and it's mixed in here, and it's so deserving to be in Best Picture because it does all of those things better than any of the other movies around it. It is elevated on a whole other level with the outstanding performances from the entire cast, led by Michelle Yeoh. The Daniels take wild and crazy idea and keep it grounded and focused on family and love and relationships that we have and generational trauma, and then talking about an immigrant family living in the U.S. There's just such layers and layers and layers that make it overly relevant while also overly imaginative all at once. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yes, this movie was my favorite movie of the year. I have talked it to death, and I'm so happy that we are here at the Oscars and it is getting celebrated with so much love in all the categories. And in all honesty, it may not obviously win in every category that it is nominated for, but I really do hope that we have another Bong Hive moment at the Oscars like Parasite, and Everything Everywhere All at Once literally just cleans house, takes home every single award that it's nominated for. That would be great. I would love that. But yeah, I absolutely love this movie, and I think I've made that pretty clear over the past year.
In an age where we're inundated with trailers and promotional material and all of that, I've really started to enjoy avoiding trailers and whatnot for certain movies, and this was one of them, and I couldn't have been happier with my decision that every second of it was a sheer surprise. I had no idea what to expect, and was really, really blown away. I remember when Just took me to the screening, and I thought, I'll go check it out, why not? And I left the theater really, really blown away by what an incredible piece of work it is. It's I don't know if I love it quite as much as everyone else in the world seems to, and so I'm probably wrong in that, but I will say that it was most things in most places most of the time, and I really did enjoy what it was, and huge shouts to Raccoon Tooie. I love
Raccoon
that.
dude.
Raccoon, whatever. That was a lot of fun and quirky, amazing. Never have rocks been so interesting, right? Never have they been so emotionally engaging. And I think there's so
Put
many.
some googly eyes on it. It's good to go, man.
Yeah, I guess so. Right? That's why I just slapped them on everything around the house now. But no, this is the little engine that could. This is the ultimate underdog story for a movie doing what it's doing. And I think it's going to have a very, very good night on Sunday. All right, let's move to what are usually my two favorite categories of the evening. However, I wasn't so thrilled this year. We'll get into it a little bit more. First, for original screenplay. The nominees are Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner for The Fabelmans, Todd Field for Tar, and Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness.
I think Östlund, or Ausland, or however you want to pronounce Ruben's last name.
I think it's an oos.
Yeah.
It's tough with the umlauts.
With the umlauts. I think Triangle of Sadness was really, really fantastic, and again, very different, which is the kind of movies that he likes to kind of bring to us. But no, I got to go again with the Daniels. We just discussed how incredibly original the movie was, that has sort of elements. I love that point, Justin, of all of the best pictures. So I'm going to go with Everything Everywhere All at Once from the Daniels for original screenplay.
Well, here we go again, because I am also going with the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once. When it comes to the writing of this movie, they did such a great job of weaving in the different multiversal stories to help tell the bigger story that stays rooted to something that everyone can really relate to. I think, if anything, from an originality standpoint, Everything Everywhere All at Once deserves the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay.
Absolutely. I mean, for myself, like I wanted to pick Triangle of Sadness here. It's the Best Picture nomination that intrigued me most, and I'll save more talking, more of my talking points for later on in the show. But I will say where it fell apart for me was the ending, and I think that's such a crucial point, is to stick the landing when you're writing a screenplay. And I do think that sometimes people look at the word original screenplay and they don't see it for what it is. It's the opposite of adapted, and they go, oh, it has to be the most original, or no. But in this case, the award should go to what is actually the most original screenplay that we saw this year, and that was Everything Everywhere All at Once. They deserve the award here because they wrote something. And again, they did something better than the powerhouse that specializes in making that type of film. And they went and said, we'll do it, but better. And I think that's pretty impressive at the same time. The Banshees had some witty dialogue at the front, but it just, it didn't satisfy me. The Fabelmans was such a vanilla script and story and dialogue, like. And Tar, I mean, oh my God, did she just shut up for a second? Could you stop talking for a second?
Hold on, because you just woke something up in me about Tar. Like, and Justin knows that I was going to kind of mention this a little bit more when we got to talking about Tar. But as far as screenplay is concerned, the most inaccessible dialogue out of any of the contenders in the entirety of the Oscars. Like, it's just...
Yeah, do you want to feel inferior in every way, especially intellectually? Watch Tar.
That's the point,
I get
though.
that's the point, Justin.
I think so.
But the problem is you can make that point and still open it up a little bit to your audience so that they can sort of feel like they're able to follow these conversations, because there was like at least 8 out of 10 conversations of her talking to rich white people that I was just kind of like, I don't care about what they're talking about.
Sure, but I think, Kevin, you probably will get this analogy, but there's almost like a Sorkin quality to this script that doesn't hold your hand.
Yeah, but Sorkin makes it fun.
Right.
This was not fun.
I don't feel inspired to now learn about the things they were talking about, whereas with Sorkin, I usually do.
Yeah, this felt like you don't understand because you're not good enough to understand. So just watch along, peon. I didn't like the
I don't
vibes,
appreciate it.
But we'll see if we've saved any of our resentment for later on in the show. Let's move right to the other writing category, which is for Best Adapted Screenplay. The nominees are Edward Berger, Leslie Patterson, and Ian Stokell for All Quiet on the Western Front. Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, Ryan Johnson. Living by Kazuo Ishiguro. Top Gun Maverick, screenplay by Aaron Kruger, Eric Warren Singer, and Christopher McQuarrie, and story by Peter Craig and Justin Marks. I mean, if you need 5 people to write a movie like that, there's something wrong. And finally, Sarah Polley for Women Talking.
I'm going to just kick it off with my choice of Sarah Polley for Women Talking. I think this movie... it very much felt like it was sort of a book or a stage play at times, and it very much could fit that. I felt like I could be sitting on in a theater watching this take place on a stage, and the way that they were able to do that, but then still keep it so captivating. And I mean, incredible performance. I know we're not talking about performances, incredible performances over and over and over again in that movie, but. For adapted screenplay, I'm giving it to Sarah Polley.
Yeah, I'm 100% there with you as well. This was my biggest surprise of the Best Picture nominees in terms of not necessarily how much I enjoyed it, but how engaged I was with it, how thought-provoking I found it. And it's essentially people talking in a barn for 2.5 hours, and I was captivated by what they were talking about, and I found the issues of morality that it brings up really, really fascinating, and so I think it was a terrific piece of writing here.
Interesting. Yeah, I wasn't really sure what I was going to pick for this category. It was my first choice, so I'm glad that you guys are picking it as well. I'm going to go with the popular vote here. I'm going to select Women Talking. I think you're right. Like, I think that this movie was written well. It's dealing with a very heavy topic, and in all honesty, I feel like if this movie's going to receive recognition, it's going to be in this category, adapted screenplay, and the way it was written. Nate, what a great call out. It does feel like a play, and I think it is written in that way. So, I think Women Talking will take best adapted screenplay. Can we just take a second here and acknowledge like Top Gun and Glass Onion in this category? I got to say, like, I don't understand how Glass Onion is in the adapted, because it's from
because it's based on a previous work. Like that's the stretch they took to get it in there.
Is that the same then for Top Gun Mavericks, because it's based off of the original? So
yeah,
it's an adapted
I think so.
Screenplay?
It's literally the sequel award
because it's a sequel.
That's like trying to convince me that Banshees of Inisherin is a comedy / musical. Like, come on, don't do that. Don't do that. Ridiculous.
That's such a good point. And again, I said it in my little intro here, but like when you need 5 people to write Top Gun, it
was still good though.
It was a terrific movie. We'll talk about it, but I don't know about this best screenwriting. I don't think that's what made it good. Speaking of best pictures, let's move into our next nominee From producers Christy Makrosco, Krieger, Steven Spielberg, and Tony Kushner, The Fabelmans is the story of Sammy Fabelman, a young aspiring filmmaker who explores how the power of films can help him see the truth about his dysfunctional family and those around him.
I think I might be the highest on this one based off of what we've previously been talking about. I really enjoyed this. I thought, not only how he captured the story of Sammy, but his own story, and also the story of a lot of filmmakers of his time. I probably feel in similar ways, and even I guess just any filmmaker in general. But there are a few scenes that really stuck out with me. I think probably the one that sticks the most with me is there's a moment where Sammy is showing one of his films to an audience, and he's not watching the movie; he's watching the audience. And it really circles in on his face and his reaction to their reactions. There were part of the movie that felt really warm. The sets I thought were really incredible and very Spielberg-esque, the lighting. And I felt like I was in the room with these characters a lot of the times. And then there were other parts that were so cold visually. And I enjoyed seeing how, we're seeing how a family is affected by the decisions of two people within it. And how Sammy learns to grow and sort of, even through the struggles of his parents, he can still pursue his passion. And I think it's a really good story. And then you add in a dash of, teen high school drama. And I really dug this. It was a very Spielberg movie.
Nah, but see, I think this movie would have been good if it was done by anybody but Spielberg. This did not feel Spielbergian level to me.
Really?
And you said it's a good story, yeah, but I've seen that in the Spielberg documentary, so I was almost excited to see those things brought to life in the cinematic, magical Spielbergian way, and it came off hokey. It came off as a filmmaker who doesn't have, the most nominations for Best Picture under his belt. It didn't feel. I saved this for last. I was so excited for it, and I came out of it. I'd give it a 6 out of 10.
Oof.
I'd give it a 3 out of 5.
Oof.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I don't think that this is an overly original movie for Steven Spielberg. It's clear that it's very personal to him, and that's fine. But I just don't think that this has that Spielberg quality of adventure. This is by the book a Spielberg themed story. It's a coming of age, the trials and tribulations of a high schooler getting into college. Like, it fits the mold, but it's surprising at how bland and how simple it really is. I know that it is based on him, so it needs to stay true to that story. But this definitely lacked the Steven Spielberg charm. I was very underwhelmed by this movie. I think it might have been a little overhyped for me. I agree, Nate. There's some Spielberg qualities, but they're just on the lesser. It feels like early J.J. Abrams work.
Ooh, interesting.
You know what I mean? Like Super 8?
It's Super 8,
up,
but
Justin.
not
You guys
as
are
good.
cutting so deep into me here. Come on. Come on, leave JJ out of this.
Yeah, that seems like an unnecessary low blow. That's fine. All right. Well, we're a little torn on that one, but I have a feeling that we won't be so torn on this next category. This is the award for animated feature film. We have Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, I should say, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red.
Yeah, The Last Witch is the next one. That's the sequel. That's going to be the next one. No shade to Puss in Boots. I actually did find that movie pretty delightful, and the animation in that movie is pretty fantastic. I think the animation across the board.
This is a stacked category. I'm like, this is a tough one to actually pick because animation across the board is so good from movie to movie.
I also want to shout out Chris Williams for The Sea Beast. I think to see The Sea Beast up and against some of these Pixar is really impressive and really, really fantastic. This is it's tearing me into 3 at this point. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio seems like the one to go with if I was going with my head. If I'm going, with one part of my heart, I'm looking at Turning Red, and if I'm going with the other part of my heart, I'm going with my favorite movie, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. So I'm going to listen. Domi Shi If she's standing up there for Turning Red, I'll be so happy. If Guillermo del Toro is up there, I'm gonna be through the moon. I'm gonna be so happy. But I think it's gonna. I want it to go to Dean Fleischer Camp and Jenny Slate and all the wonderful folks who worked on Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. So that's gonna be my pick.
Nice, Justin. How about yourself?
This is a tough category, man, because I'm totally with you, Nate. Animation across the board is solid. Puss in Boots is fantastic. I just don't think it'll win best animated feature film, but it deserves so much to be on this list. It was so good. And Sea Beasts, I talked to death about that movie on that spoiler-free review. I loved it. I thought it was great. But Turning Red was probably my favorite animated film of the year. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio was incredible, just incredibly unique and different, and so much better than the Disney live action Pinocchio that we got. And it was of its own. It was so unique. Then I saw Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, and this movie was heartfelt. It was warm, and I think it does really show animation in the best light. I think it is probably the movie that will win for animated, but I'm with you. I think that if Guillermo or Domi Shi are on that stage, I would not be disappointed. But yeah, I'd like to see it go to Dean Fletcher Camp and the entire team of Marcel the Shell with Shoes On.
See, you boys, this is why you can never beat me at this game, because I'm going where the money is. He's dominated the award circuit so far. I'm giving it to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Now, this is coming without having yet seen Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which I plan on watching before Sunday. And so maybe I'll have my heartstrings pulled enough to sway the vote there if it's as good as you guys say it is. But I think the point being, this is one of the strongest animated categories I can ever remember. This is not like throwing in 2 animated films just because they needed 5. This is a really, really strong group, and it's amazing to see where animation is going. So to anybody who says it's for children, maybe you don't deserve to have your job anymore. Oh, wait.
Well, and with that, I really do hope the presenters this year are not those who talk about animation as movies that they watch with their children like they did last year.
I mean, honestly, if Guillermo wasn't nominated, I would have him be the one presenting. 100%. You know what I mean? I would even still have him.
Or Phil Lord and Chris Miller would do a great job. Maybe that would be great if they were the ones that, because they're not nominated for anything. They will be next year. And even just that, when we think of next year's category with Across the Spider-Verse, Mutant Mayhem,
Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is going to be on there. You're going to have Elemental as well. Mario, of course. We're going to have Mario. Again, it's already looking great for next year. But yeah, I'm really interested to see what is going to win this year.
I'm actually more invested in this than Best Picture.
Exactly.
That is your best picture.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice. I have one of those every year where it's just like I'm so intrigued by the nominees, or I'm so invested in one of the nominees. So that's awesome to see that it's coming from animated, and we can it's 30 years later, but we can thank the renaissance of Disney animated pictures, from turning heads with Beauty and the Beast to look where we are now. It's pretty awesome.
From turning heads to turning red.
Oh, there we go. Oh my goodness, you got my back all night. I love this. If I let one go by, you're picking it up.
Nate, you didn't even think you're tarning red.
Oh no! Is that an Irish accent?
Well, or it could just be an allusion to our next nominee for Best Picture. From producers Todd Field, Alexandra Milken, and Scott Lambert, Tar tells the story of Lydia Tarr, a renowned conductor whose life spirals out of control as accusations from her past begin to surface. I'm going to lead it off here and say, okay, there's one scene where Cate Blanchett is lecturing in a class, and I don't know how long the individual take is, but she might be acting with just the most words
what I'm
per
saying.
minute dialogue I've ever seen in one take, and it is so unbelievable. It's so exceptional. I found myself when there was finally a cut, I went, holy shit, that might be some of the best singular acting in a scene I've ever seen done. But the problem is it's surrounded by so much other pretentious bullshit. I really enjoyed women talking, but this was woman talking, and I did not enjoy it nearly as much. I just hated being talked down to for 2.5 hours.
Listen, I think, again, and I get what Justin's about to rebut with, that it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be, we're supposed to feel that way so that the end of the movie, the resolution will feel, but listen, when you're talking about a 15-minute payoff for how long this movie was, I didn't find it to be worth it. Was it a great ending? Was it a really intriguing way that they showed this character and her downfall? Sure. I just didn't find it to be worth going through. And I think that there's a lot of things that I didn't pick up on, and I struggle to think of, like, am I just really not smart? I watched an explainer video, and I sent Justin the same explainer video from who was it? Who did we watch it from? Heavy Spoilers. Great
Heavy
work
Spoilers.
over Heavy Spoilers. But if I have to watch an explainer video to get me from a 2.5 to a 3.5, I'm not giving this movie a 3.5. I'm sorry. As intriguing as the themes that 16-minute video covered amazingly, this movie didn't do that for me. So I did not enjoy Tar. Sorry.
Well, I was pretty apprehensive about seeing this movie. I know Nate can attest to this, but I called him and we were talking about it, and I was like, "Man, this movie's over 2.5 hours. Like, doesn't seem interesting." And then he started mentioning the explainer video and talking about the psychological thriller aspect, and I said, "Okay, I'll give it a shot. I won't just jump to watching the explainer video." And honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. After watching this movie and not watching the explainer video and coming right out of it, I would give this movie a 3.5 out of 5. The idea that it keeps you outside of the world and that you don't feel like you're a part of it and you're trying to decipher. And this is all anchored by Cate Blanchett's overly pretentious performance that makes you feel like you're not worthy to be in her presence. As I was mentioning, there's a psychological thriller element that works its way through the narrative, and that's seen in the cinematography and just how it's edited together. Honestly, I think everything about this movie was done intentionally to make you feel uncomfortable. And that really does come down to the words of the script and what is being spoken, because, yeah, I totally agree. The language and the dialogue is completely inaccessible. And it does make you feel like you're outside. But as you said, Nate, I think that is the point, because when you get to that resolution at the end, it does hit you because you spent the last 2 hours in this overly pretentious world, and to see it kind of change and shift, it just lands differently. So I enjoyed it.
I'm very glad that it resonated with you, Justin. It just didn't stick for me. That's a joke about sticky tar. Why don't we move on to our next category? We're getting into the big four. I know we just gushed about how incredible animated is and how much we're looking forward to, but these are generally considered the big four of the evening, and I'm excited to wrap things up with them. This is for achievement in directing. For The Banshees of Inisherin, Martin McDonagh. For Everything Everywhere All at Once, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. For The Fabelmans, Steven Spielberg. For Tar, Todd Field. And for Triangle of Sadness, Ruben Östlund.
Well, I think that this could go one of two ways. Now, my money is on the Daniels, but I think that Steven Spielberg could win Best Director for The Fabelmans, because it makes sense for him to get that recognition for the story that he told, and for Fabelmans to get acknowledged. It got acknowledged here. Best Director.
That's his best picture?
It makes sense. That is his best picture moment. Doesn't get Best Picture, but he gets it. He gets it here. But at the same time, though, I think that the Daniels are going to get Best Director. I'm going with my heart on this. They deserve it. And honestly, I think that there's a very good chance they could clean house on Sunday and take home all the awards. So yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once. The Daniels for Best Director.
I'm also going with the Daniels. I think that again, it's one of those things where it's like you've got them in the writing, you've got them in the directing, you've got them in the visual effects. They're in the movie. Like they put so much of themselves into this work, making this movie. And I definitely think, again, I think the only one that comes close to me from a directing standpoint, I do think is The Fabelmans. Speaking of putting yourself in the movie in a different way, but no, I'm going with the Daniels. I definitely think they got to take it. It would be so cool.
I mean, I think you mentioned both of your choices being perhaps recognized for reasons outside of just directing. And, does Spielberg win this because he doesn't get Best Picture? Do the Daniels deserve this because of how much they put into the movie? And I think that's what Best Picture should be for. I think if they do get the achievement, that's where it should be. It's for Best Picture because everything that they did is the sum of those parts. That said, it did feel like Spielberg he had it in the bag. This one was over, especially when he won the Golden Globe. It was like, this is just, here we go. We know what's going to happen. But the momentum that Everything Everywhere All at Once is gaining, I think they're going to be up there for a lot of hardware, including this one. We're going to get one of our first ever dual director wins, and it's just the 8th or 9th of 10 or 11 moments that these guys might have on a pretty big night for them coming up, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But now let's move on to one of our final nominations for Best Picture. From producers Jerry Bruckheimer, Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, and David Ellison, Top Gun Maverick shows that even after 30 years, Maverick is still pushing the envelope as a top naval aviator, but must confront ghosts of his past when he leads the Top Gun program's elite graduates on a mission that demands the ultimate sacrifice from those chosen to fly it.
I don't have a lot. I just wrote booming, IMAX, loud, exhilarating, cheesy, and confident, I think are the words that I would condense my review of Top Gun Maverick down to. It made a Top Gun fan out of me, for sure. I watched the first one on the way to seeing the sequel, even to the point where I had to watch half of it on a phone, as I'm sure it was intended to be watched, and then watching Top Gun Maverick on the complete opposite of that, and just being completely riveted, shaken at times to my soul with the noise and the volume of the movie theater. Yeah, dude, seeing Top Gun Maverick in IMAX it's one of those movie experiences that's just like, that's it. And I think even more in the sense that this is kind of, this was the movie that brought audiences back. I know. Yeah,
it's post-pandemic.
Right. I know. Sure. What's his nuts likes to say that he was the reason with that movie where people go backwards or whatever that movie was. Again. Why am I blanking right now?
Nolan? On Tenet? No, he would not say that. He did not want to release that movie the time that it did, but he had to. Right. So it's a shame that movie couldn't have waited, because obviously Top Gun benefited from waiting. It was delayed immensely because it was meant to be experienced in the theater. Steven Spielberg said to Tom Cruise at the Producer Guild, like, you single-handedly saved the theater-going experience. Like, the idea that Top Gun Maverick generated that much of a buzz and was one of the most successful movies of the year just on its theater going experience says a lot, and which is why it deserves to be in this category. It was the resurgence of the theater experience, but it's also the resurgence of like just that popcorn summer blockbuster. You see it with your friends, you talk about it after. This is the theatrical experience moviegoers were waiting for. And the movie itself embraced all the nostalgia of the original Top Gun and really soars to new heights. The IMAX experience is the only way that you could really experience this movie. And my God, Tom Cruise is a superstar. He brings new depth to the character of Maverick. It'd be wild. It'd be absolutely wild if it took home the gold for Best Picture. No, it would be crazy.
It's not going to happen, Justin.
But yeah, but here's my thing. I think this movie is the wild card. this could be the wild card movie that could potentially.
Wasn't that one of the
take it.
characters? Wild card? Was that one of the pilots?
Not yet. That would be your call. I think, I mean, you guys nailed it. This is the pinnacle of big screen spectacle. This is the first true popcorn blockbuster that we've had in years. This was the ultimate, theater going experience, and in a lot of ways probably did save that theater going experience for people for years to come. Tom Cruise deserves all the credit in the world for his commitment to not just the character of Maverick, but to, also setting standards during COVID for what was a safe work environment for his colleagues. And so much of what he did in the behind the scenes for this movie make the fact that the movie was so much better than a sequel to Top Gun had any right in the world to be. Top Gun is an 80s bro action flick, and this was just like a solid, awesome, just spectacle that, I'm stealing the avatar. It's a spectacle that, people really enjoyed too. It wasn't just like, wow, that's great to look at. It was like, man, I felt something watching these pilots do these, Death Star runs. So I think
it did Avatar better than Avatar.
I was going to say, it did what James Cameron expected to do, but, instead,
way better.
They did it in a jet and way better. And it's not the best picture, but, man, it's one of the coolest stories, and it was the biggest, baddest movie that came out this year, 100%. Okay, why don't we move into our one of our final categories here. This is for actress in a leading role. For Tar, we have Cate Blanchett. For Blonde, Ana de Armas. For To Leslie, Andrea Riseborough. For The Fabelmans, Michelle Williams. And for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Michelle Yeoh.
I say Michelle, you say Yo, because she is going to take home that gold. I am telling you. Again, just like Key, she has had a great award season, getting the recognition and acknowledgement for her performance in this movie. It is next level. It's transformative. It transforms the perception of what people see of Michelle Yeoh on screen. And it proved so much in that, she's been typecasted. She's been, stuck in a bit of a genre box, if you will. And here she really gets to break that mold on her own terms, in her own performance that is absolutely riveting and incredibly captivating. It has stuck with me since March of 2022 when I saw this movie. And I remember when we left the theaters, I was saying that she is going to get nominated for an Oscar. So I'm so happy that we're here and we will see Michelle Yeoh win the Oscar for Best Actress in a Leading Role for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I think when we look at this, I'm looking at these performances through the idea of like, was it a fully fleshed out character that was made even better by the performance? And I think of like Ana de Armas in Blonde as Marilyn Monroe looked very much like Marilyn Monroe. I can't necessarily say though that the entirety of that movie had me captivated by her performance. I think there were moments. I think Michelle Williams in The Fabelmans had some great moments throughout the movie. I really do. I think there were some fantastic, again, one or two scenes.
Do ya, Nate? Do you?
I do. I really do. I also think that, as you said, Kevin, Cate Blanchett is incredible as Lydia Tarr. I wish I cared what she was talking about, but the way she was talking and the length of time that she was talking.
Made you believe that she knew her shit.
Absolutely. I believe that she is absolutely that character. And if I was to find her having a conversation about the same stuff with someone else, I probably wouldn't stick around for too long to actually watch it, but I'd be impressed. I will say, though, Michelle Yeoh, just the entirety of that movie is incredibly captivating. Evelyn Wang is just one of those characters that, again, from as sort of this underdog story that will just stick with me forever, and she's just so perfect in it. So I'm going to go with Michelle Yeoh as well.
Yeah, I think if you want to show an acting class how to act, you show them Cate Blanchett's performance. If you want to show, an example of when an actor with an accent can't hide that accent, you show them Blonde. And if you want to show them how a character can be the heart and soul of a movie, you show them Michelle Yeoh. I think other than the Daniels, which are obviously they're the crux of this whole film and everything that has to do with it. But if you take Michelle Yeoh out of it, I don't know if it works as well. I don't know if it resonates the same way. She is the sort of centerpiece on the screen that holds it all together, and it's amazing. I mean, when we saw that back in March, it was like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if she got nominated for this? And now it's like,
I said
basically
she's gonna get nominated, man.
It's
Yeah,
basically a shoe, and she's going to win, not just nominated, but it's just, yeah, I think she's going to win, and it's a hell of a performance in, in a pretty stacked field when you look at who she's going against here, and it's just like, no, sorry, this is a no-brainer.
Her speech will be very interesting, very much like Key's. I think it's going to be emotional, but it's going to be to the point. It's going to be tough too, I think.
Yeah. Well, they've had some really interesting things to say about what this movie means to their community, and I think she's really proud to be representing that here, and so it's going to be a pretty cool moment. Yeah, this is my like, if Avatar loses, if she loses, I'll eat my iPad after. I've already eaten my laptop if Avatar loses. So, but yeah, that one seems like a no-brainer. All right, let's move to one of our final nominees for Best Picture. From producers Eric Hemmendorf and Philip Bobber, Triangle of Sadness follows a celebrity couple on a luxury cruise with wealthy guests, where the unexpected is just the first act.
This was a delightful surprise. This was especially after watching 2 seasons of The White Lotus. This was just right where I needed it to be. White Lotus. At times we get a bit of maybe in the further part of the movie a bit of Lost vibes, a bit of Lord of the Flies vibes. I mean, this movie even has like the same hallway shot from The White Lotus that sort of carries through as it sort of pans through, and you get to see sort of some of the craziest imagery that I've seen of a bunch of white rich people. A really fantastic message on anti-capitalism. I will say, though, one of the things that I wrote down was that if this was a movie in the 90s, it would have been starring Leslie Nielsen as the captain of the ship, and it would have straight up been a parody comedy. Because as I'm watching the movie, I was like, I don't get how this is necessarily comedy. I'm not fully figuring it out yet. And then it sort of slowly starts to descend, if you will, into this dark comedy. And there were moments where I was like, oh, okay, now I'm in on the joke. I get it. And this is absolutely fantastic. I think it's a little bit too long, but otherwise I thought it was really, really good.
It is long, but I thought this was paced well, in sort of an act structure of how we experience the story through the eyes of these influencers and what inevitably, evolves. And, I love the idea of using the yacht as a social structure, where you have the affluent on top and the workers at the bottom. And, the idea that when mayhem ensues, things shift, that power dynamic shifts, and those who were the helpers are now becoming the leaders and taking charge. So I think that there's a commentary that about social class and how we look at social class it's very apparent here, and the capitalism piece as well is a huge importance. And I think that's very much what the Triangle of Sadness is that an allegory for class systems and the wealthy on top and those at the bottom. I think this was a very smart movie, and it was done in probably the most fun way. But yeah, I think where it loses me is towards the end, like you said, Kevin. It just kind of feels like it doesn't stick to landing, and it introduces this thing and then it's just kind of done. And with a movie like this, ambiguity can help, but I don't know if it really worked in the ending. But yeah, this movie, it's good, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to get Best Picture.
Don't fill up on Doritos though watching this movie, because you might see a bunch of triangles of sadness coming out of you. This is not a movie for those who are maybe get seasick easily.
That's been heavily alluded to online with some of the
Yeah.
visuals that people have put out about this movie.
It's rough.
And it's crazy to see, again, going back to the social structure, to see the insides of both the ship and the people aboard the ship start to come out. Rich people starting to spew out, and the disgusting nature of what unfolds on the ship that is seen as this pristine, high-class experience, right? It's all done really, really well, and with a clear commentary.
I think that we're alluding to these 20, 25 minutes that happen right around the middle of the movie where you just start to get the feeling that something's off, and it just slowly builds on itself, layer after layer, and you're like, oh no, this is going places, and it is just chaos, and it's awkward laughter, and it's gross out humor, but in like a satisfying way. It's
because and that's the thing, you almost get gratification to see these over
this
the top
happening
affluent
to these
people.
Yes,
exactly.
Of course.
Right? Even the guy who gets like a little bit of like vom on him as he's eating, and he just continues.
He flicks it off and keeps
waiting.
going. You know how much he spent for that meal, man? He's not missing the captain's meal. No way.
Jeez.
No way. But and then just as the guy gets drunker and drunker with the captain, and they're on the intercom, like that part really had me just howling out loud. I am the captain of the ship now. It's just the zaniest 25 minutes I can remember in a movie in a long, long time, and I loved it. And that 25 minutes makes it my favorite movie of the 10 best picture nominations. But the fact that the ending is such a cop out. In my opinion, and we don't want to give away spoilers here. We want you guys to go watch these movies if you haven't seen them yet. But I just don't like that leave it up to the viewer to decide kind of finish. I feel that's a cop out, and so that's what really went from just being like that movie was awesome to oh man, I'm so disappointed in the last like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it falls apart. It falls apart in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like pick. I don't care what you decided to have happen, but choose one and show me it happen. I've been through too much with these people to not see a conclusion. So, but this was another one where I was like, other than hearing that it thematically drew parallels to The Menu, which was another one of my absolute favorite movies of last year. I knew very little about it and hadn't seen a damn thing, and that is the absolute best way to go in. Don't go into this knowing a damn thing about it, and just go on this journey, because it is an unexpected journey in the hobbitiest of ways. All right, let's move to our second last category. This is for actor in a leading role. We have Austin Butler himself as Elvis, Colin Farrell in The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser in The Whale, Paul Mescal in Aftersun, and Bill Nighy in Living.
It's Brendan Fraser.
It's Brendan
got to
Fraser.
be Brendan Fraser.
Sure. It is. It's going to be. I like that. That performance has stuck with me since I watched the movie, and it's emotional. It's intense. It's really hard to watch at times, just to see him put himself through this. But the commitment that Brendan Fraser brings to this role is next level. It's memorable, and on top of it all, the fact that he and Key are on this same journey of resurgence, and they've been celebrated in the awards circle already. I really would love to see, like, my heart would love to see Brendan Fraser win this. There is a chance that Austin Butler could win it, but I just, again, when we talk about some of the overacting, he definitely played his part in adding to that. Some of his performance was good. I'll give you that. Watching the movie, it's probably when he didn't speak in most cases, but every time he spoke and every time it just kind of almost had that clownish feel to it, similar to that of Tom Hanks. And it sometimes took me out at points. So whereas with Brendan Fraser, all of it, again, I say this, it's when an actor can believe the character that they're playing. And I think that can be said about all of the actors I selected for the categories in these Academy Awards, that they all believed who they were. So my choice is Brendan Fraser for The Whale as Best Actor.
Austin Butler literally became Elvis to the point where he hasn't stopped being him since. Come on, that's commitment. That's commitment.
That's
Yeah,
lost identity. That's
Yeah.
what
I could see him up on the stage. Thank you very much for this Oscar. But yeah, Brendan Fraser as Charlie. It's just riveting. It's such a riveting experience, and I watched it today, and yeah, absolutely, man. The guy had me crying. I was tearing up. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, at various times, I mean, Austin Butler won the Golden Globe, and so that had people going, wait a minute, what's happening here? I honestly think Colin Farrell and what he's done with his career in the last 10 plus years, he's so amazing. I mean, that guy literally personifies the triangle of sadness with his eyebrows in the Banshees of Inisherin. Like, I felt so much for him and those big, beautiful eyebrows. But no, it's Brendan Fraser all day. Like, just it's etched on there. I can't wait to see his speech because, as a big Rick O'Connell fan growing up, it's crazy to see that he's gone through so much behind the scenes personally, and that he's been able to bring himself back here. It's such a beautiful story, much like you said, like Key. And
he's been celebrated in the award circles so much for his genuine and authentic performance that he gave in this role, because it resonates with so many people. Like, it's pretty crazy when you think of what he put himself through, physically and emotionally, to play this character.
And I mean, no matter what happens, he did say, in an interview recently where, he's had people reach out to him. Who his performance has resonated with, and they've talked to him about their stories. And he said that's the best award right there. So it would be phenomenal if he takes home the Oscar, but he seems like he's already won. So
yeah, that's a great way of putting that. That's awesome. Yeah. All right, let's look at our final nominee for Best Picture. From producers Dee Dee Gardner, Jeremy Kleiner, and Frances McDormand, Women Talking is the story of the women in an isolated religious community who grapple with reconciling a brutal reality with their faith.
This was a heavy movie.
It was a heavy movie. It's hard to watch. I got a lot of Handmaid's Tale vibes, obviously, but where that series, sort of takes something that
dramatizes it, though.
Kind of, yeah, but it also makes it feel more dystopian because it takes place in the future. This movie just hit so hard on the standpoint of like, no. That this is real. This is all real. This is, you know what I mean? Like, again, obviously you get that with Handmaid's Tale, but this just, I don't know. It just, the way that it was hitting, the way that the dialogue was, as we said before, written, felt like a stage play, emphasizes the incredible performances. I love the way that, even though at times I think the movie is a little bit too visually dark, I think there's moments where the sun adds color into
and hope. Yeah.
And it's really, really, really cool the way that they managed to get that shot, and the way they add those effects. I think the editing, as I already mentioned, there's moments with flashbacks in this movie that are sharp, punchy, and brutal, and so effective in the way that they're edited. I just think it's fantastic that this movie it's a result of the actions of the men in the movie, but the movie's not about them. It's about these women and their experiences. And it's harrowing. It's hard to watch. I don't think I'd watch it anytime soon, but that's not because it wasn't a fantastic film.
Yeah, it's heavy and it sticks with you. And I think that the real craft of this movie is from an editing standpoint, Nate. Really, the story comes alive through the editing. And like you said, like, this isn't obvious, horrific actions that we see happening to these women. It's captured in a way by almost what you don't see, and the remnants of moments and the memories and the scars that it has influenced on the characters as to why they're in that barn discussing the next part of their faith. And I think that that's where the sort of that heaviness and that ability to really hit you is by not showing you everything. It's what's happened is the outcome of it. I think it was well crafted in that way. The story was told, so it wasn't necessarily about the horrific natures of what happened to them, but about them and their decisions, right? And I think that this is such a well-crafted film for Sarah Polley. I think that much like her other films, there's a balance between nature and nurture, and I think that this is very much in that realm of tonality. Again, extremely heavy topic, but one that needed to be shared and showcased, and I think it was done in the most honest way.
I honestly think the biggest shame of this movie is the fact that there's so many terrific acting performances here, and it's almost as if Rooney Mara, Claire Foy, and Jessie Buckley were all so good in their performances, were all so intertwined with each other that none of them could be separated, and therefore none of them got a nomination, even though I think any of the three of them deserved to be nominated for their performances. I found them just absolutely captivating. I wanted to reach through and try and reason with some of them about the decisions they were contemplating. And I really did find that to be one of the more intriguing aspects of the movie, was just how it plays with your morality. And at times I was thinking, well, no, because they're given the three choices to stay and fight, leave, or do nothing. And at different times I could see the rationale behind any of those stances and the reasons why the women were choosing those decisions, and I just thought it was just such a harrowing position for them to have been put into, and such a fascinating look at religion and again morality. So this one took me the most by surprise as I went into watching the Best Pictures nominees. I just was floored by how it made me feel afterwards, and I was really impressed with so many aspects of it. So this was definitely my big surprise coming out of all the 10 best nominations. Now, speaking of, why don't we recap those and make our final picks for our final category, which is, of course, Best Picture. I'll really quickly just remind everyone, the nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking.
I think there's a lot on this list that, as we've said, deserve to be there. And there's a few that definitely don't, in my opinion. But, I mean, obviously, I think this is it. Obviously, I'm giving it to Elvis. I just think... No.
Well, thank you very much.
Sorry, the wrong... It's still the letter E. Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah, let's just do it. Let's make it happen. Let's go for it. I think, technically, the Academy loves a war movie. The Academy loves movies made about movies. So to have a director making a movie about directing a movie, it's very it's some good bait on the hook for the Academy. I want, please, just Everything Everywhere All at Once. Make it happen. I can't wait to celebrate.
Yeah, I think that of all of the awards that Everything Everywhere All at Once is nominated for, this is the most likely one that it will win, is Best Picture. It might not win best director. It might not win for editing, like I've chosen, but or even original score. But Best Picture is definitely a guarantee because, as you pointed out, this movie came out almost a year, in and around a year ago from this month, and it's still a movie that people are talking about. It is a movie that has stuck with audiences and with myself. So yes, I agree. Everything Everywhere All at Once for Best Picture.
I love the point you bring up there, Justin, because I remember a couple years ago when we had a friend of the show, Mike Hogan, on, and he talked about how some of these Best Pictures, they pop up, they get people talking, people go, oh yeah, that was really good, it wins Best Picture, and then you never talk about it again, or you quickly sour on it, and it doesn't age well or whatnot. To think that this movie is where it's at a year after coming out, and it just slowly went like, hey, we're going to start with this limited reach, and it used word of mouth and developed this reputation and got people to go see it. And the fact that so many people went to see it and were just like, holy shit, it is as good as people told me it was. Oh my God, it's even better than I expected it to be. And to have the acting performances, the originality, the just so much going for it to make it a special movie. I think that's what the Best Picture should really be about. We've never really seen a movie quite like this movie, where it takes so many elements of the movies that we love and combined it all into one and made it work the way it did. Is just a feat that I think deserves to be celebrated. So while it might not be my absolute favorite of the movies that were nominated this year, of the movies that I've seen within the last year, I think it is the best movie to come out, and I think it deserves the accolades that it's going to receive on Sunday. All right, well, I think it's time we get to go and mingle at some after parties now. This was our Academy Awards preview show. Thanks for tuning in wherever you listen to podcasts. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and leave us a glowing review, or we might just have to kill your donkey. As always, reach out and say hi and let us know who you'll be rooting for at this year's Academy Awards. You can do so at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com, or if that's a little bit like winning a Razzie, hit us up on Twitter at GeekcentricYT and Instagram at WeAreGeekcentric. Be sure to tune in next week, where we'll reveal who won our annual competition, as well as who took home all the hardware at the 95th Annual Academy Awards. Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great content covering the latest in movies, TV shows, and games, including our recent spoiler-free review for the Apple TV original series Hello Tomorrow. And if you're like us and can't get enough Star Wars, we currently have 2 weekly watch clubs going on right now. One for Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 2, which we bring to you every Wednesday, and to quote Yoda's dying words, there is another. We also have our watch club for The Mandalorian Season 3, with new episodes out each Friday. And speaking of The Mandalorian, we also have interviews out now with The Mandalorian director and series producer Rick Famuyiwa, as well as Bo-Katan Kryze herself, Katie Sackhoff, where Justin had the chance to chat with them both and discuss their role in the larger Mandalorian story. So give all those episodes a listen right here on your podcast service of choice, or you can check those out on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. 2023 is rolling along, and it's only getting busier as we march forward. So stay tuned and keep tuning in. But until next time, J-Law, Nate, thanks for joining me. And as we say,
Love ya.
Get home safe, guys.
Peace.